SG Reads.
Hello fellow travelers, my name's SG and welcome to the channel. As promised, today I'll be doing The Book of Bill. I bought this book pretty much because I thought it was another book. I thought it was a book I've been looking for forever. But once I received it, it changed its shape. I don't know why, I don't know how, but it is what it is. But once I started reading it, I just found myself not being able to put it down. It was so enticing, so interesting, and then I literally couldn't put it down. It feels like I've been sleeping it with it in my hand for the last 2 days. I don't know why that is, or I don't know what's going on with it, but once you start, it's one of those things you just can't until you stop. And if you stop, you still don't want to stop. It still keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. I'm losing track here. Anyway, I've read The Book of Bill. It has 5-star reviews from Normal Al, because he feels that after he read this, he's not exactly the same anymore. Guillermo del Toro thinks it's a very bad book because now he's getting nightly visits from demons. And Charlie Day, who loves the book himself. In fact, his last sentences are just "I love Bill" over and over again. So, those are some 5-star reviews in my book, and let's get started, shall we? But before we start, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. Bill would appreciate it too. The book can be broken down into about 5 different sections: the About Me, Bill's Guide to Everything, My Story, Sixer, and the Big Plan. We're about to go through everyone in a shorter synopsis kind of way. I do suggest going to buy the book and supporting the original creators of the book, Alex Hirsch, or Bill Cipher himself. It would really help them out, I know it will. And yeah, let's get started with About Me, shall we? But before that, we do get a warning from Stanford Pines, from the original journal number 3. We're not really sure how he found this book. He said he found it like lying under a bunch of papers, and he does not know how it was created. He thought it was a prank at first, but then thinks the followers of Cipher are actually out there waiting and trying to bring Bill back. We don't really know that for a fact, but he says that this book has haunted him for at least a month now. And there are little things here and there that suggest that this book is able to absorb other books, become part of something bigger, and that he is just trying to stop us from reading it at the beginning of the book. But Bill Cipher says it's all good, so we continue on, shall we? In the About Me section of the book, we get a glimpse into his mind through an interview where he talks about his motivations, his wants, things that he feels regret, which is pretty much nothing, how old he is, which is 1012, which he still considers himself a teenager compared to most of his people. And we get the most important question that I think everybody has on their mind: is he the father of Phineas and Ferb? He refused to answer that question overall, but I think we can pretty much guess what he means. We then go to his power section, and it's mind reading, possession, clairvoyance, charisma, pyrokinesis, looking amazing and form aware, geometric perfection. But we do get his weakness. He's not willing to give a lot of it, but we got synthesized music, tinfoil, McGugget's memory gun, and he has no physical form. After that, he gets mad at us for looking into his weaknesses, and the book turns into The Great Gatsby. It continues on to The Great Gatsby for a period of time. Man, I hate The Great Gatsby overall. But we move on. From then, we get a small quiz to suggest that he is testing us to see if we are worthy enough to look into the mind of Bill Cipher. The only way to pass that is... Alright, I hope you got that. I'm not going to repeat it because I feel endangered if I repeat that. And we're moving on to the next section. In Bill's Guide to Everything, we do get this idea that he has appeared into pretty much everything and tries to explain the secrets of the universe, humans, love, deja vu, death, morality, parallel dimensions, urban legends, deja vu, silly straws, codes, question marks, which is mirrors, dreams, the meaning of life, and deja vu. He tries to explain each one poorly and in his own kind of sarcastic/cynical way, such as you could tell he has no idea about the human anatomy and just thinks that it's a bunch of gooey, gross stuff. Love, he feels it's just a trick by people and pheromones, but we do get this idea that he may have been in love himself at one point. Deja vu, he feels it's just some cosmic entity, either him or somebody else just messing with you, putting you in a Groundhog's Day situation. The secrets of life, well, the secrets of the universe, is just that the universe is just a big Pokemon card. It's a hologram, and the Pokemon card is owned by another cosmic entity, showing his older brother how cool it is, and his older brother trying to trade it for a piece of string cheese. Morality? He said that's really up to you. Parallel dimensions I want to talk about later on, because that's going to have a special significance later on. We do get chili straws where there's the most codes. If you can solve them, I'll put them in the pictures. Codes, he said there are no codes in this book at all. Please do not try to look into the codes. They will not help you at all. Dreams, he thinks everyone has dreams, but that's how he just enters into our reality, into the nightmarescape, and can push us out. He said his favorite dreamer is Mabel. She has the most erratic and creative dreams that are just pure chaos overall. The meaning of life? There is none. You come up with your own. Here, you could write it down somewhere if you like. That's the meaning of life right there. And so far, that's pretty much what Bill's Guide to Everything is. Now, Bill's feeling chatty because now he wants to talk about his origin story. And in his origin story, he said he's from his dimension where everybody's a shape and two-dimensional. And that there is either a forward or backwards. There's no other direction to go in that world. When he was born, he was given this foresight that allowed him to look through things, see things beyond himself. And then the first thing that he brought up to his people was that there is an up. We can actually look up into the sky. They didn't want to believe that, and he tried to give them this gift of, I guess you could say, seeing things in a bigger picture. It didn't work, and they said it ultimately destroyed his universe. He said it's not his fault. It just happened that way. How much you want to believe that is up to you. Now, we then go to more of him entering the nightmare realm, where he met a group of other Eldritchian beings. People like him, people that want to have fun all the time and live in chaos. Each one more crazy than the last. Pyromaniacs, people who just eat people, and so on and so forth. But he found out that the nightmare dimension in itself is collapsing, almost like a film reel just starting to burn out, and it's starting to just get to them. They ignored it for a good couple thousand years, but now that it's getting closer, they're starting to get panicky. That's where Bill came up with the idea that they should just escape into another dimension, like he did when his first dimension came out. And that's where Earth came in. He managed to find his way to Earth through various means and found that it had the shortest, or at least the thinnest veil between that world and the nightmare world. Still not perfect, they can't get through, they need someone to help push them through. And when he gets here, he goes to Gravity Falls because of its short, I guess you could say thin veil, like I said before, and he meets a shaman who he befriends and claims is able to help open it up. He was a mystic man, and he tries to convince this mystic to let them in. But when Bill finally revealed the ultimate plan for their ultimate party to never end, the shaman pretty much closed it off, making this diagram so that Bill could never come back in. Bill got upset because he felt this was his real first true friend in a long time. And we do get that Bill waited for another period of time, meeting different people, like Vikings, he said, were weak-minded because he thought they were being easily corrupted. But then they found ancient runes and kept him away. Henry VIII, he didn't actually expect to invade the mind of Henry VIII, and just grew paranoid about his wives trying to usurp him in the future, using the powers of Bill. Which was not wrong, which started, Henry VIII's, 6 wives situation. We then get to the witchcraft, how it was a bunch of Puritans or holy men that just weren't able to satisfy their wives or even spend time with them. So Bill, in the guise of a goat, went to the wives and gave them powers and sort of fulfilled their kind of dreams in a way. Gave them the ability to want more from life and even taught them how to laugh. Which it ended up in the witch trials, but that's neither here nor there, with the main one being a Thatcher. We then go on to more of turn of the century era, where he came the closest to opening the portal, and that was when he met a young scientist trying to figure out how to turn snake oil into gold, or trying to just sell his snake oil, period. Bill gave him the ability to make the perfect slogan for his snake oil, which made people buy it, and he managed to not only get a bigger raise from his boss, but managed to marry his boss's daughter. He became rich overnight. And from then, Bill kept coming to him, asking him to fulfill his favor, but he kept having nightmares about what that favor would be. And as he went on, he kept trying to get people to help him kind of get rid of these dreams. While there weren't anyone that were physically available, then there were suddenly 5 or 4 other people that have experienced the same thing, who were talking to Bill too. He managed to get them all together, and together they tried to kind of kick Bill out of their own heads. They started the first anti-cipher society, which was against all things geometrically perfect, especially triangles, because that is what Bill was. Now, the man that would eventually go on to be possessed by Bill, who was the creator of the snake oils, was William Lucifer. And he tried many things suggested by these people. But the main thing that seemed to stick was an exorcism, where Bill did confront all 4 of them, and said that all 4 of them are necessary for releasing him into this dimension. All of them refused, ultimately, to be kings or gods or just be rich. And in the end, William Lucifer himself ended up being sent to an asylum, where he could finally get some sleep. But that's not where the story ends. William Lucifer's wife ends up leaving him overall because of all these little things here and there, and ends up going to somewhere in Oregon and marries a rich man with a huge mansion, he says. The biggest mansion in Oregon, if you will. And from there, the William Lucifer story ends, and we move on to more of the animation era, 1950s to 1960s, where Bill Cipher says he's been getting into the minds of animators for centuries now, or for years, trying to get his image out there. And of course not working, because people find his image too frightening and haunting for it to be enjoyable. He hopes the animator works out sometimes, because the animator cuts their deal off shortly. We then go to more of a nuclear age era, where he tries to convince the president and several other people to release Bill Cipher in order to stop the war from happening, or to get intel about their enemies. And they almost took it, and it was Bill that really broke the deal when he asked, I wonder how cool it would be if all the nukes went off at once. And that kind of made everyone in the White House and Pentagon raise an eyebrow and deny what happened later on. Then came the internet era. He claimed he tried to do the Macintosh so that he could get into people's minds and get information off them. Didn't work still. That was 1980s. He then tried to get into grandma's, tried to crochet him a version of the portal. Still didn't work with his Hubbles. And then finally, he was about to call it quits after so many centuries of trying to convince stupid people to do stupid things, which brought him to the greatest answer to his question he could. Someone who has an even bigger ego than him, someone who likes to think themselves a victim, but also has the ego of a god, tries to play God, and answers the question, is he a genius or is he an idiot? Well, he's both, and that would be Stanford Pines. These next pages are from journal number 3, The Lost Pages. These explain Stanford's personality, his looks on life, what he feels about McGucket, how he feels about Stanley, things like that. How he feels like he was abandoned by society, how he feels like an outcast even here in Granite Falls, Oregon. How McGucket went on to have his own family with a woman named Anne Marie, which is very important because that's something we didn't know in this main series. And of course, how we managed to create the portal, how he managed to figure it out, and how he managed to know that it was wrong to do it. Because he, for a period of time, like a few months after making the deal with Bill Cipher, he started getting nightmares. He started having these visions of different people of history, all in kind of a shadowy mist, spewing black ink on him. And they just called, I got maddened. They just keep repeating that, and he remembers just hearing that constantly in his head over and over again. Now, since we read the last chapter, we know that all these people that he's seeing are different historical figures that have been affected by Bill Cipher themselves, trying to give him warning. We then get a time skip to more of like when McGucket leaves and Ford's finally realizing Bill's not on the up and up. He's not helping. He has been gaslit this whole time, Bill trying to get him to build this machine. Now he doesn't want to. Now he's trying to put measures into avoiding it, where now he is becoming paranoid, where he's looking into ways to stop Bill. He has looked into the Anti-Cipher Society. As low grade as they were, Ford learns that he could build a suit to help avoid the invasion of Bill into his mind, I guess you could say. And from then we get more of this paranoid, delusional state. Even he notes that there was footprints outside the mystery shack of the time, or his house in this one, and reveals that there were children's feet outside in the snow, and he went to go look for them. He thinks that's just Cypher's way of messing with his mind still. But if we know, that's when the Time Traveler's Pig episode where Dipper and Mabel may have been outside the house. And then moving on, we do know that Cypher was getting more and more aggressive. He was more and more tenacious. One day, Stanford was tired, fell asleep, and became a victim of Bill Cipher. Bill Cipher took over his body and caused all kinds of havoc in his body, ruining his reputation, his name, and his police record in every sense he could possibly imagine. He doesn't really know the full extent of what Bill did that night, but we do know that he tried to do something very terrible to him, and even called Stanley Pines, claiming that he was about to do something terrible. Now, it didn't happen, obviously, because Stanford at that point said that was the last straw to the situation. He's calling one of the only people he doesn't trust, but one of the only people he can rely on, Stanley Pines, his twin brother, to try to get away from the journal number 3. He said he didn't want to destroy it, and that's a bit because of ego, and a bit because he just feels that it's more important to have it than not to. Now, when Stanley Pines is showing up, we get this kind of cons and pros, with the only pro being he's the only person he could trust, he thinks. And from that, we pretty much know the full story of what happened to Stanford Pines and Stanley Pines after these events. Like I said, I just glossed over a lot of it, so if you want to read what really happens or the details of the whole Stanford Pines Bill Cipher saga, please buy the book. It's very fun, very interesting, and does add a lot to the storyline overall. Now we get to the plan. Currently, what's Bill Cipher doing? Which I'm sure all of us are wanting to know. He's claiming that he is in a dimension, not death, but not alive. He is half-half, which is better than some people's lives are right now. He's saying that what happened with Stanford Pines is a setback, but he can wait. He knows that he can wait a little longer. The portal's still there and might take a little while for his dimension to get destroyed, but overall, it's not too bad. He said he put already in place a new plan, and this plan is to have us, the readers, the viewers, the ones listening right now, to help build him his new portal, to help him achieve his goal. This book, these words, have been designed to get into our minds, program us to kind of understand what he wants to do, his understanding of the plan. And he thinks that we will go along with it no matter what because we have that much influence since we made it all the way to the end of the book. But we are then interrupted by Stanford Pines again, saying that he's read this book, and his family, Mabel, Dipper, Stan, Seuss, have all read this book, and that it has no effect on anybody. It's just that. He's just trying to gaslight us, trying to get all of us to accept that this is his reality that we are trying to just move forward with. And that it's not true. There is no power in this book. It's just a book that he's just trying to get people with weak minds to accept. And then we get a nice little send-off from all the characters, from Mabel, Dipper, Stan, and Ford, of course, with the last words being from Bill Cipher himself, saying that, yes, there is no power in this book. He can't control your mind. Where he is pretty much a mental institution for rehabilitation. He hates Stanley Pines. Not Stanford Pines, Stanley Pines. Because he feels he's the one being mocked by him the most. He feels that I'm being mocked by a lesser clone of Stanford Pines. So there will be something like that. He hates Stanley Pines. He just goes on for the next few pages and talks to the Gravity Falls God, which I'm sure some of you know and some of you don't, the axolotl of the universe, who does provide a small poem about Bill Cipher, offering him a chance of redemption, and that once he feels that he is ready, Bill Cipher will be reincarnated, and will get something that Bill Cipher needs rather than wants, something that the Gravity Falls family, the Pines, will have later on, or do have right now actually. Now, that just leaves Bill Cipher in this institution with all these different creatures, both kind of Lovecraftian, Eldritchian, and sort of meme-based, stuck in this world, creating a scrapbook known as the Book of Bill and sending it to our world, trying to get out of his, I guess you could say, caregivers. He claims he's fine, but then he falls into the void, and we'll see what happens next. That's where the book ends. Now, let's talk about the Pines family, because they are a very important part of the Book of Bill. The first time we actually mentioned them are probably in Dreams, I believe, where we do talk about the different dreams of the people that were against Bill in the last episodes of Gravity Falls. There we learned that Sixer dreams about being in a game show and asking what's he attracted to, and that's logic and preparation. We do know that Wendy dreams about her mom almost every night. He then leaves a side note saying, "Sorry, Pine Tree." We do know that Mabel has the greatest mindscape to Bill Cipher that he knows, saying that it's a mix of chaos and just weirdness that he really does enjoy. We do get that Seuss dreams about questioning the question mark sometimes, and changes his last name to Pines, and 80s movies most of all. Robbie dreams about his original hair color. Pacifica has nightmares every night about having blood on her hands, being 100 feet tall and destroying the town. And yes, the lumberjack from the Murder Mansions episode does still visit her at night and haunts her dreams. And we do get that a small thing about what led Mabel and Dipper to Gravity Falls in the first place is that Dipper has dreams about his parents having a fight and hearing something he shouldn't have. And then Bill leaves a side note saying, "Why do you think they were in such a rush to get the kids out the door for the summer?" Hinting at a darker bit in Mabel and Dipper's storyline. We then go to embarrassing memories of Dipper, where Bill says he just loves watching the anxiety-ridden Dipper's memories going and going, saying that it is almost like binge watching a show, because it's just so hilarious. And remember when we got that image that was leaked saying McGucket was the journal writer? He said that was him. He does that every so often. He said there are a bunch of different pictures out there that Bill claims to have thrown out there, where even Waddles and Gorney from the Hollow Summerween episode are the writers of the book. And he said he still laughs that Dipper still kind of thinks Gorney is the writer of the journal, just a little bit. And to just top it all off, Bill then puts a little sidebar of Dipper's search history. A little odd, but funny nonetheless. And it's exactly what you think it is. So, again, look it up yourself. It's fun. It's a little fun excerpt in the book. And we move on to our next bit, where he talks about Mabel's dreams and how much it's chaos even for him. He doesn't care to be in there himself overall, because it just was this idea that it's just anime and just funny, nowhere nonsense that he himself couldn't control, until they told him how to control Mabel using the end of summer and a time traveler, which leads us to Weird Mageddon again. The one mind he doesn't want to go back to is McGucket. It's so torn apart from his memory loss gun that there is nothing there that is corruptible in a way. It's just there. And that there is a version of himself that's still sane, trying to put everything back together like an inventor trying to fix himself. Well, there is no real ending to that, so Bill leaves him alone. While that all is very fun and interesting, the one bit that I'm sure everyone will know, or everyone wants to talk about, is the parallel dimensions part. And from there, we do know that Bill says that there are different dimensions that he has peeked into. Not really interacted, but he knows there are more of. And that there are more of him out there. That he's only this universe's version of Bill. And that he has seen universes where there is different color Bills. He said there's a square Bill that he doesn't really like talking about. And he even said that there is a universe of chibi version characters of every Disney character with worn down nubs for hands, and that's more terrifying than anything he could come up with. But the most important part is that he reveals that this version of him and the Pines are the great version, are the better version. The fact that Mabel and Dipper won in this universe is 1 in a million, literally, because there is no other universe where they won, in any sense. In fact, every other universe is they lost in different ways. And they've either been traumatized, torn apart, or have different limbs. And they said maybe for fun, somebody will open this crack between dimensions. And not only will they have to deal with all these different Bills, they're going to have to deal with these bad ends. So for now, I'm going to call this the Bad End War. Because we then get this image of Mabel and Dipper sleeping at the bus stop. But there are a bunch of other versions of them. Versions that have lost trying to reach them. A Dipper that never got his body back. The Dipper that was turned to wood. A Dipper that's kind of glitching in time. Followers of the Blind Eye, Mabel and Dipper, trying to reach them. Bill Dipper. Mabel with Gideon's crest. Small Mabel and Dipper trying to get size again. A melted Dipper. Clone Dipper. Zombie Mabel and Dipper. And of course, the Summerween special where they would have been eaten by the Summerween creature. Gnome Queen Mabel. We got 8-Bit Dipper, who may have got sucked into the game because he might have won. And there's so many other little references to the show in this that could give a darker and grimmer look at what happens next into the storyline. Another thing that's to note is that all these events, the book, Stanford, and all this, is taking place a year later. But we'll talk about that in the final run-through. So what does this mean for the future? Well, when I looked through the book again, I found that at the beginning of the book, the first couple pages, there was a website. And it was thisisnotawebsite.com. And when I activated it, when I went to it, it found that it needed a password. And after some searching on the internet, I found the password, and it was just a clock in a countdown. And now the clock is set for a day and some hours later at the time of this recording. Now, what does that mean? It means there's an announcement coming. Something big's coming. And what most people have pretty much figured out is that it's going to be about, I guess you could say, when Bill mentioned this different dimensions coming. Because, like I said, it's different. It talks about it as if we and us. As if all the Bills are planning something bigger. And the fact that they illustrated this whole thing very well done, and even left the side note saying maybe one day in the future all their good luck will finally run out. So that means I'm going to call this the Bad End War, where all the bad ends, all the endings where Mabel and Dipper have lost, are trying to break into the main prime universe. This being the universe and only universe where Mabel and Dipper won and able to go back home. We do know that for a fact because the way they all look, they're all reaching out for Mabel and Dipper. Maybe they want to either get help from them, or the darker aspect of it is that they want to take the place of Mabel and Dipper of this universe. Live happily ever after. Well, something they never got to it. And when you look at all of them, all the suffering they went through, you kind of understand that. There's so much that could be going on in the story. And another thing is that Bill is still out there. He's just kind of demotivated, if you will. He does not care for rehabilitation and is praying that somebody lets him out of this hospital, if you will. And the Axolotl seems to know more than he lets on, saying that there is going to be a time where he will be reincarnated soon in the future and understand what the Pines love, understand what they're about. So maybe that's going to have some sort of storyline coming, but we'll have to wait for that in the coming days. Let's see what happens, yeah? I'm excited to see. All in all, this is a very fun book. It really is meant to get into the mindset of Bill Cipher. And we can see that because it goes from a very confident Bill Cipher who feels he's in control, and you just see the deterioration of his mind, of his conscience, of his personality, how it keeps going down, and how he's kind of just going through emotions himself. And like, what brings me to that is when they talk about two things. And he talks about love, where he claims it's just a cheap trick, or it's just something that's a pheromone in people. But then he is asked, did you ever love anybody? And he gets startled by that. He kind of tries to skid past it. But then when we get to when he talks about his friends and he calls them minions, there is a character that's scraped off. There's a character that looks like it was a female character that was kind of just written off by him. And we can get a little bit of the words in there suggesting that Bill may have had a high opinion of her, may have really liked her and was interested in her. But then it leaves off with leave people closest to you kind of situation. Who knows? Maybe we're... And at the end we do get this idea that he was kind of obsessed with Stanford Pines himself. He thought he was a true friend, a partner. He thought that they were together in this till the bitter end, and when it wasn't, he was heartbroken by it. It felt like he was betrayed. Even Mabel kind of hints that he was crushing on him a little bit, which is fine. It's just funny. But now we get this idea that Bill Cipher did destroy his own reality because they tried to destroy him. And he hints at that at the very end, that that's what happened. And he's saddened by it. He is saddened. He's lonely. And that's the idea that the book's trying to give. It's a glimpse into his mind, trying to connect with people. And then just kind of realizing, and people realizing, that he's not an omnipotent God. He's just an extra-dimensional being who himself is very sad and lonely and wants that connection. And the Axolotl says you will have that connection, but in a different form and in a different time. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this book. Me going through it. I know I kind of rushed through it, but this is a review and more of a look over, I guess you could say. And please, I do suggest going to buy the original book. It is very good. It's interesting. It's fun. It has a lot of tidbits. It's meant for a mature audience, so more of people who are young at that time of Gravity Falls and who grew up to be more of teenager, college student right now. Because even it says that in the front of the book that it's meant for an older audience. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, and see you later.